The big Epic Games leaks, Astro Bot and LEGO Horizon previews, plus the continued fall of Embracer Group, all today on TouchPad. Hello and welcome to Cross Circle Squared. I am Benny Girkman, and this is TouchPad, your daily video game news show. Tons of news today, and pretty big news actually, so let's start off with the biggest, Epic Games Store's leak. Last night, EpicDB launched. It's a service similar to SteamDB in that it collects all the information from the website's servers and it kind of puts them out into a database that's easy to parse. For example, you can go here to SteamDB and look up Counter-Strike 2, as I have here. You're able to see info like the app ID, which is useful for some Steam console stuff. You're able to see some store page info about updates, DLC, builds of the game. You can even see a list of achievements that has all the like string names that Steam actually views it as, not like the real names. A bunch of things like that. You can go see the artwork for the game, the screenshots, like actually just the files for them, if the game has badges, stuff like that. It's all visible there on this very easy to parse page, essentially. A normal person can look at this info. It's not normal stuff that you'd find just like right on the regular store page put out by the publisher. It's more behind the scenes information usually. A similar service launched, EpicDB, and it was attempting to do something similar. A way to easily access information that's, not the normal thing that you'd find like at the top of Ubisoft's next game page, right? Like the list of achievements. I don't think you can even find that on the Steam website unless you're like actually signed into your account. So it sounds like a good idea, right? You're just putting out this information so it's easier to access. The only problem, well, you can find a bunch of cool information about both released games, and on EpicDB's page, you could find a lot of information about unreleased games. Even SteamDB itself has been party to some leaks of unannounced or unreleased games, but that's usually at the fault of the developer or the publisher. It's them making something public when it shouldn't have yet been put out there onto Steam. With EpicDB, though, a bunch of stuff was just thrown out into the open. You could go to a publisher's page, look at every single title they had public or not on the service. So we got like a lot of unannounced, unreleased game titles, plus a ton of code names for projects. A lot of these in this list here are sort of unparsable, mainly because these devs use code names for their projects. You'd be looking at a list for Bethesda, for example, and you'd see like Oblivion, Morrowind, and then like Brownie and Enigma. So like, even though we don't have complete confirmation on what those titles are, we can sort of just guess through outside knowledge of what the developer or publisher is working on. Let's take Rockstar, for example. One of their games on the database was Project Semla. According to the database, it's about 10 gigs. Well, Red Dead Redemption 1's PS4 port is also about 10 gigs, and a lot of people were speculating that RDR1 would release to PC at some point, given the fact it's gotten both a Switch and PlayStation port and is available on Xbox. There's only one other place to put it. So you could take that information, kind of put it together and be like, hey, okay, I think Red Dead Redemption 1 is set for a release on Epic at some point. Or take some other games, like WB's naming scheme, which is a little less vague than Rockstar's. They have something called Project Hydra up on Epic. And that's probably either the Wonder Woman game or even more likely the Captain America Black Panther game. There's some pretty obvious ones on this list as well. Saber Interactive has a project just titled Turok. Probably a Turok game, whether that's a port or remake or reboot or whatever. We don't know, but we do know that at some point that game named Turok was in development there. This is pretty similar to that old NVIDIA leak from a while back, but now I think mainly because of that leak, everything is using a lot of code names. So when you look at like Ubisoft's list, it's mostly Puff Pastry, Growtopia, Glassette. Like we don't really know what those are. It becomes a lot harder to see what exactly these companies are working on, especially compared to that original NVIDIA leak. Like 3 years ago at this point? EpicDB was shut down by Epic. They closed off access to all their servers and their database to try to cover up these leaks a little bit. And then, as you can see here, if you go to the website now, it is just taken down completely. I'm not going to go through a full list of what games were actually put on that list, or what we could expect from those games, because one, it's a lot of stuff, and two, if you really want to find that all out, it's a Google search away. But I do want to go through a few here that are, I think, probable. Red Dead 1, I think, is pretty likely. They don't really have anything going on other than GTA 6. So I guess the Max Payne remakes, but I don't think those are going to be 10 gigs. I think those are going to be a little bit higher fidelity than that. So I think it's pretty clear that's Red Dead 1. There's a few others, like Sony's Project Utah, which has been guessed to be The Last of Us Part 2's PC port. There's Square's Skobloff, which when you inspect it on the website, it would have had a where the save games get put. And that was in a directory of user/mygames/Final Fantasy 16. For most of those, though, it'll probably be months to years before we even see the official announcement of their respective games, if ever, since a lot of these could have been projects only ever in pre-production or just test pages. A lot of these companies did have test pages. They were just normally called, test page or test product or whatever, but, they could have been called something fun. Turok, maybe. Could have been called Turok for some reason. Maybe someone's a Turok fan. We don't know. There's not much stuff really confirmed by this that we don't already know about, but mainly just kind of stuff to ponder on, stuff to put your detective goggles on and try to do some guesswork with. Okay, what you won't have to do detective work on, terrible segue, is seeing if Astro Bot looks fun or not, because I'm here to tell you it looks great. The embargo for SGF previews has just dropped, so we have a slew of different takes in from a bunch of different outlets, and everything seems to be incredibly positive. Across all the major outlets, there's almost no bad press about it. Everyone's mainly just enjoying and reveling in its simplicity. It's basically more of an Astro's Playroom type game, as we expected, just longer and more built out. It's simple, just a jump, attack, and a boost in terms of how you control the game, similar to Playroom. It's a collectathon, but this time you're rescuing different characters instead of PlayStation hardware. Each level has a little gimmick to it, and every level seems to actually feel like something new was going on. It's introducing new things, new concepts at a good pace, every few seconds, every few minutes. Most people only got about 45 minutes with the game with their preview, kind of just enough to tell that the game is cute, that it's simple, but a lot of these previews might not have been long enough to know if it'll stay cute throughout the full runtime or if it'll start to be a little grating. No clue yet. Some outlets did get more time and more exclusive access with the games, and kind of the best article I've seen so far is from VGC's Andy Robinson. They sat down with the game's director, or the creative director, and he talked a lot about just kind of what you can expect, like from the DualSense integration to how many characters you'll be able to find in the original or in the final release, things like that. I'll leave it below if you'd like to take a read. IGN's Rebecca Valentine also got a chance to talk to the creative director as well, where he said we can expect about 80 full levels in the final game, plus free DLC after launch, adding some more levels, some more challenges, and some secret stuff yet to be announced. Astro Bot, of course, releases September 6th. That's less than 3 months away, so we don't have long to wait for it for ourselves. Another game with previews getting unembargoed today is a LEGO Horizon Adventures. This mostly seems positive again, but it still has that same kind of cuteness quality to it. All the previews are talking about how much they enjoy its presentation, its playability. But of course, it's going to have all the issues that come with a Lego game. Like, it's not going to be telling a life-changing story as we usually come to expect with Sony games. It's going to be smaller. It's going to be, I don't want to say more childlike, but it's definitely going to have that kind of Nintendo vibe to it. I like Push Square's Stephen Tailby's take on it. I read his preview. It looked like a good, fair one. It wasn't like too overwhelmingly glowing. It just kind of talks about what you can expect. So again, I'll link that one below. For some non-previews, let's go to Gearbox, as they are finally out from underneath the very shaky, kind of poorly made, probably has a few holes in it umbrella of Embracer Group. They've recently been bought out by Take-Two, and the transaction has ended today. They're going from one big corp to another big corp, so they're not exactly free, but Take-Two does seem like less of a sinking ship recently, so you know what? I'll take it. As per game developers Chris Kerr, Embracer is keeping Gearbox San Francisco and has also kept the publishing rights to a few games such as Remnant and Hyper Lightbreaker. Embracer has just bought Gearbox, or had just bought Gearbox for an initial offering of $363 million in 2021. We don't know exactly how much they ended up paying for them in the end, but it's arguably higher than the $460 million that they're selling it to Take-Two for. Okay, and some other big corpo news. These segues are terrible today. WB Games and Suicide Squad. WB Games has announced via an interview with IGN's Wesley Impel that Suicide Squad will be continuing in its live service efforts by at least finishing out everything announced for year one of the game. No word on if there will be content after that year runs out, but you'll have until next March to at least play through the Suicide Squad game and get all that exciting content I'm sure you're foaming at the mouth for. Okay, finally, let's go through some new announcements and some releases. Visions of Mana has had a new trailer release, and it's given us a release date, the 29th of August this year. It'll release to Xbox, PS5, and Steam. Limited Run Games has announced the Limited Run Games Showcase 2024. It'll air June 20th at 2 p.m. EST. I'll cover anything there that's big. If they announce anything big that comes out there, I don't know, we'll see. There's also going to be a Life is Strange double exposure reveal tomorrow at 12 p.m. EST. It'll show gameplay, talk about the story, things like that. Looks to be a bit of a closer look than any of the trailer we've gotten previously. And finally, Jeff Keighley has announced that Summer Game Fest 2025 is happening. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on who you are and how you think of it, it's still going to be in June, still going to be in LA. So, going to have all of the same problems pretty much that it has always had. Hopefully some more games though this year. And finally, PS Plus games have been announced for the month. I'm linking below to the IGN article detailing them all. Nothing big on that list there. Maybe Far Cry 4 is cool. You also get Monster Hunter Rise. And you also get the console port of CK3. I don't know how that is. I don't know if that works well. I've played it on mouse and keyboard. I don't know if that really transitions over to controller that well. Maybe I'll try it out. Okay, no actual real releases of any games today, so that is it. Let's get you out of here as quick as you got here. As always, I am Benny Gerkman, this is Cross Circle Squared, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.